Caring for the elderly is a profession which involves an enormous amount of trust and integrity. Unfortunately, the role is also open to abuse, as is the case with this next story. Carer Donna White couldn't resist the temptations put in her path, even though her actions would cause profound distress to her vulnerable victim.
Donna Bramall was born and bred in Barnsley, West Yorkshire, and by her 84th year, she lived a very full and varied life.
She went all over the world, Mum. She's been to the carnival at Rio, she's been in safari across Africa, she's flew on Concorde with Dad and been on QE2 when, according to Mum, that was when QE2 was something, you know. Mum's really lived life to the absolute max. It's amazing what she's done.
She's always been a very bubbly, go-getting lady, involved in everything, very friendly and opinionated. Loved her to bits.
Diana was still very much in love with her husband of 62 years, Norman, who wooed her during the post-war era.
Dad used to go drinking and he spotted a very attractive part-time barmaid, which was my mum. Dad was a butcher just after the war when meat was rationed, so he swapped some meat with some Americans for these silk stockings, and he turned up with these silk stockings, and Mum was very impressed with that, and that started the relationship.
After the pair married, they soon had children, Stephen and his brother Michael.
We lived on a little farm with the butchering business attached to it. Mum combined bringing up myself and my brother up and helped Dad in the business, and she didn't know anything about it, but she rolled the sleeves up and got stuck in.
Diana was a fun and feisty character who, as her years advanced, dedicated herself to fundraising.
When she retired, she got involved in charity work for a local children's hospice.
It became very important to her, and she loved doing craft work, and she incorporated that into her fundraising, really. Making coat hangers, cards, all sorts of little things. She felt it was part of her life, really.
Old age had left Diana with a number of health issues.
Mum's had a series of operations. She's had both knee replacements and both hips replaced, one 3 times, both the shoulders replaced, and then she's had a serious back problem.
Mobility was becoming an issue, and we could see how things were getting difficult for her. She did tend to fall quite a bit. She was getting scared of going in the shower in case she fell, and it was becoming more and more of a problem, and we could see things getting worse.
With Stephen and Carol living over on the Isle of Man, they felt that the time had come for Diana to get some extra help at home.
We said, we think you ought to start with having some care, even if it's just in the morning, to help you get up and get moving. And then she'd be all right the rest of the day, really, because it was the morning thing that was the most difficult, because she was quite stiff with all her joints.
She didn't want to have anybody helping her, but she realised that if she fell, there needed to be someone around.
Diana knew a carer called Donna White, so she finally agreed that she and another lady could share the job of helping her with her morning routine.
Diana knew her a little bit, and so I was happy that broke the ice, because it's always a difficult thing, bringing people into your home.
The carers came in and got breakfast for her, helped her shower and dress, and any other jobs that she wanted doing, they would help her do it.
I met Donna, and she seemed very nice and helpful, and I was very grateful that Mum was happy and that she was getting the help. I was really relieved, because it was a weight off my mind that while I was not around, we could relax a little bit, knowing that she was getting that help in the morning.
In fact, Diana struck up a close bond with the pair.
They did become good companions. They were working for her, but she thought of them as friends, and we did too, and it became a nice, relaxed relationship.
We were really delighted that Mum had found somebody who she could have a laugh with, and Mum still wanted to go on trips, and the girls were prepared to go with her, and Mum paid.
She started travelling around the country and organised trips. They were quite happy to go with her and have a little holiday and take her and look after her as well.
Along with paying for trips away, Diana was also generous with her possessions.
On more than one occasion, Donna had problems with the car, and Mum said, "Oh, you can take my car." And I mean, she got a lovely sports car, which unfortunately, due to her health, she couldn't use much. And she said, "You go off and use my car."
That's what kind of a woman she was. You know, she was more than happy to lend it, and Donna took it.
A couple of years passed, and Diana had a new lease of life thanks to Donna and the other carer. But in August 2015, life as she now knew it was about to come to a devastating end. Diana liked to have cash to pay for her weekly outgoings. So Stephen's brother Michael used to withdraw the money from his mother's bank account. But Diana started to notice something wasn't adding up.
My brother said, "Mum's mentioned on a couple of occasions that there's some money short." And he said, "Well, Mum, I'm sure I've counted it." And she said, "Well, you better get counting better. You know, you're not doing it properly."
She used to say, "I don't know what I'm doing with my money. I get my money and it just seems to go, but I don't seem to have bought anything."
We thought, where's it going short? Is the bank not giving the right amount of money? We thought all these permutations.
Money continued to go missing. To rule out that it could be anyone visiting his parents' home, Stephen came up with a plan.
It was decided to put a camera in the kitchen and direct it at the chair that Diana sits on, because that's where she had a handbag and her money. But we did a lot of checking to make sure that we legally could do this.
Mum was a bit concerned initially about this camera going in there, but the idea was, through the internet, for me to be able to watch from the Isle of Man what was happening in a kitchen. But very, very quickly, after we'd fitted this in, we found that the internet connection was so appalling. It was pixelated and you couldn't get any quality through.
Stephen found a way to record the footage on a hard drive, but as he lived so far away, it would be several months before he would be able to watch it. During a short visit to see his mum, Stephen's wife Carol spotted something suspicious that left her thinking she might know who the culprit was.
Donna was there, and I just happened to walk into the kitchen, and she was leaning over the table, and I don't know what she was doing. Her reaction was such that I was suspicious. She just sort of looked at me twice, was shocked, and did a strange movement away. I was quite upset because I knew something was very wrong. And I went to Steve and said, "I think we know who's been taking things from Diana."
Stephen knew he needed to act fast and took 3 months' worth of CCTV footage back with him to the Isle of Man. Would the camera images confirm their suspicions?
Quite early on in the footage was a clip of Donna taking money. Straight away, you got that sinking feeling, because this is a friend.
He rang me up and he said, "Carol, we've got her. She's on camera." And he said, "But there's loads more to look through."
You could narrow it down to like an hour a day between the times that you knew she was visiting, between 9:45 and 10:45. The rest you could ignore. You could see Donna arrive in the morning, go to the kitchen and go into Mum's handbag.
He kept ringing me up. "We've got more, and he was getting more and more upset.
Stephen couldn't believe that the woman he trusted to look after his own mother had been stealing from her, taking cash from her handbag. Sadly, there were more shocking revelations to come.
As we got deeper into the footage as well, we could see that she would look into the checkbook and she could see how much Mum had wrote the cheque for. And so she knew how much money was going to be coming in that day.
You see her come in, sits down at the kitchen table, lifts the bag up onto the table, rifles through the bag, and she fetched the letter rack out, went through the letter rack. You just couldn't believe that it were happening. So brazen, really.
It's not until you see it that it makes you feel sick, absolutely sick. To find that somebody you trusted as a friend was sitting in your mother-in-law's chair as if it was her own, going in your mother-in-law's handbag as if it was her own. It's so awful to see.
When Stephen added up the number of times Donna had stolen from his mother's handbag during the 3-month period, he was astounded by the outcome.
We'd got 64 clips. And bearing in mind, some days the door in the kitchen blocked the camera, so that day's clip was gone. And different amounts every time to blend in with my mum's spending patterns, really.
Stephen had footage of Donna White taking money from his mother's bag on 64 separate occasions. And on some days, she would do it more than once.
She just couldn't stop herself. If it had been a payday and she knew and there was a lot of money in Diana's purse, she'd come back twice, 3 times in half an hour to take more money and more money and more money. Even on Christmas Day, she went in a handbag and took money.
Stephen had caught Donna red-handed. In his possession, he had hours of CCTV evidence clearly showing her stealing money from his mum's purse. Ahead of him, Stephen now had the difficult job of breaking this news to his mother and the difficult dilemma of whether or not to go to the police with his findings. In August 2015, 84-year-old Donna Bramall started noticing that some of the cash she withdrew on a weekly basis was going missing. After confiding in her son, Stephen, he set up a CCTV camera in her kitchen to see if he could get to the bottom of the mystery. On reviewing several months of footage, Stephen was shocked to see that his mother's carer, Donna White, was stealing from his mother's purse on 64 separate occasions. Now, Stephen had to break this terrible news to his elderly mum and decide what to do next.
Stephen phoned his mum and told her about his shocking discovery.
She didn't want to believe it. She said, no. And he said, I'm sorry, Mum. I'm really, really sorry. I've got this footage. There's no doubt at all.
Mum didn't want us to take it any further. She said, look, Donna's been great to me and she's been ever so kind. I said, Mum, wait till I show you this footage, please.
Stephen made the nearly 200-mile journey to his mother's, armed with the CCTV footage.
I took the laptop and put this CD in, and Mum, you could just tell her face drained. She's just deflated.
She couldn't believe it herself at the beginning. She was really upset, but then she was annoyed with herself because she hadn't spotted it. And she didn't know how long it had been going on, really.
It was particularly upsetting to see that Donna had even taken money from Diana's handbag, whilst her husband Norman had been in the very same room.
My dad can barely walk. He's got 2 terrible knees that they can't replace. And in one of the clips, my dad's there making her a cup of tea, and she's there robbing him. I mean, it don't get any worse than that, does it? My dad's just trying to be kind because she was helping his wife, the woman he loved. That's horrible, isn't it? Horrible.
So many things where she does that. I mean, she's sitting in Diana's chair, reading Diana's paper. Norman's across reading his paper. They're chatting about today's news. And all at the same time, she's got a hand down the side, fumbling in Diana's handbag for more money. And they're sat 3 feet away from each other. How can you do that? Norman was very, very saddened to think that somebody he'd trusted as well had done that to him, because whatever she did to his wife, she did to him as well.
Diana wanted to know what Stephen planned to do next.
I said, well, Mum, I've arranged to go to the police. And she said, well, what'll happen to Donna? I said, I don't know, Mum, but we've got to follow this through. We've got to, because there's other people in the same position as you, and we've got to think about that.
By now, Stephen had told Donna that his mother no longer required her services, but she was also caring for a number of other people in the local community, so he felt an obligation to go to the police.
Within a few minutes, they saw the severity of it and the clarity of the footage. And that's when they decided then they would get Donna in for an interview and proceed.
The CCTV footage was crucial to building a case against Donna.
You had this statement from Donna Bramall claiming that funds were going missing from her purse. And if it had been put to Donna White, she could very well have denied that she was committing those acts. So it's very much one word against another. That's why, in this instance, the CCTV was vital evidence. It clearly showed Donna White committing the acts that the family suspected her of. It would be very difficult for Donna White to refute that evidence.
Donna confessed to the thefts that were caught on CCTV, but she denied that she had taken any money prior to the camera being installed.
From the footage, Donna White seems very at ease. She seems very comfortable in what she's doing. So it does seem to suggest that perhaps the offending took place over a longer period of time.
We'd only got 3 months of footage. The police estimated that in that 3 months of footage, approximately £3,000 had gone missing. But the care had been going on for a long time. But obviously, that's the only prosecution that could happen, because that's the only hard evidence we'd got was for that period.
The police and the CPS were happy to proceed with a case against Donna.
They were saying that this was an epidemic, and they were very, very keen to try and get a custodial sentence as a deterrent for other people.
It is very important to take these types of crimes to court. People who are vulnerable need to receive assurances that if they are exploited by those around them, those people will face repercussions in the criminal courts and they will be punished accordingly for their actions.
Because the evidence was so compelling, the investigation happened quite quickly. And then the police were keen for it to go to Crown Court, because Crown Court can give a harsher sentence. I remember getting a text from the policeman concerned, and he said, "Good news, it's going to Crown Court. We are so happy in the police force that we've got it to Crown Court."
As the sentencing hearing approached, the stress was taking its toll on Diana.
Mum was very, very unsettled. She was very uncomfortable with all this. I mean, you're talking about somebody who's been your daughter almost for a few years, and so Mum was really very, very on edge.
In October 2016, Donna White attended Sheffield Crown Court for sentencing.
There was certainly no pleasure or happiness or gloating. It was something that had to happen, and I think we all just wanted it done and dusted. None of us wanted to go to court. We didn't want to relive it even more than we were living it.
Donna was reported as having sobbed when the sentence of 10 months was read out.
We'd been told it could have been up to 2 years, but I think because it was a first offence and mitigation, that they'd arrived at a sentence of 10 months. Normally, I think people spend half the sentence locked up, so we expected the sentence to be probably 5 months.
Stephen now had to call his mother and break the news.
It didn't give her any joy, and Mum said straight away, "Oh gosh, what about Mum and Dad?" There's no winners in this situation, is there?
But Stephen was shocked when his mum contacted him with news just 6 weeks later.
Mum was quite distressed. She said, "Do you know Donna's out?" I said, "It can't be right, Mum. Can't be right." It was really quite a shock. It was such a life-altering, distressing situation, had been reduced to 6 weeks. It's not nice for anybody to be in prison, but it didn't seem to reflect the pain that had been caused.
Diana never got over it. She wasn't the same woman at all.
It was only a couple of months later that Diana's poor health took its final toll, and she was admitted to hospital.
I went down to Mum's room, and just before I got to the room, I looked down the corridor. There's my dad. He'd got shaved, boy style, and he came down to Mum's room, and he pulled his chair up to her and put his hand on his cheek and, "Come home, love." He says, "We're missing you, Tob." And she opened her eyes and smiled. And you saw 60-odd years of marriage there, you know, somebody who just loved each other that much. And it was intensely moving for us, you know, to see that, you know, and it really was. It just showed you how much in love they were.
Sadly, she passed away. With that having happened, it's very tragic, really. A tragic end to a lovely, well-lived life.
Diana was fortunate to have lived such a full and happy life, surrounded by people who loved her right to the very end.
The friends have said what life and soul at party my mum was, and we all knew that. I mean, she certainly lived a life. She really did.
The amount of money Donna White stole may not be a huge fortune, but it's not just the financial impact of her actions that need to be remembered. It's the distress and emotional toll they clearly took on Diana Bramall. The judge at Donna's trial said, people who prey on elderly and vulnerable victims will go to prison. This wasn't just a theft of a few £1,000s. Donna White was sent to prison because this crime was a breach of trust of the most wicked kind.